You could step on the scale right now, see a normal number, and still be in serious trouble. Not because the scale is broken, because the scale was never measuring the right thing. There's a fat you can't see, can't pinch, and can't feel, and it's wrapped around your organs right now. And the tools that most people use to check their health, they're designed to miss it. A 2025 study across 91 countries found that more than 1 in 5 people with a completely normal BMI still had dangerous levels of abdominal fat. And those people had measurably higher rates of hypertension, diabetes, and high triglycerides. A normal weight and a hidden risk. That's the problem. And today I'm going to give you a way to actually deal with it. It's called the W.A.I.S.T rule. 5 letters, each one based on recent research. And by the end, you'll have a much better way to judge your metabolic health than just staring at the scale. The first letter is W. Watch the waist, not the weight. Here's the core problem with the scale. It measures total mass. That's it. It cannot tell you whether that mass is muscle, water, subcutaneous fat, that's the soft stuff under your skin, or visceral fat, which is the deep abdominal fat that wraps around your liver, your kidneys, and your intestines. Those are not the same thing. They're not even close. And this matters because visceral fat isn't just sitting there passively. It's metabolically active tissue that is pumping out inflammatory signals around the clock. It releases cytokines. Those are proteins that trigger low-grade inflammation throughout your body. It disrupts insulin signaling and it talks to your organs constantly. And what it has to say is not good. Now here's where the science just got a lot more serious though. A study published in Nature Communications in March of 2026 followed 533 adults for years and found that people with low long-term visceral fat had better cognitive scores, larger brain volumes, and slower brain atrophy as they aged. Now let's think about that. This isn't just a heart disease conversation anymore. This may be a brain aging conversation as well. Now that study was also 86% male, so we're not treating it as gospel, but it's pointing in a direction that the evidence keeps pointing. Visceral fat is not a cosmetic issue. It is a whole body issue. So now how do you actually measure your waist? Because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They just suck it in, grab a tape measure, but that's not it. Here is the proper method. Stand up straight, feet shoulder width apart. Find your natural waist. That's the midpoint between the bottom of your lowest rib and the top of your hip bone. Wrap the tape around that point. Parallel to the floor, don't suck it in. Breathe normally, exhale, and then measure. As a general starting point, research consistently flags elevated risk above 40 inches for men and 35 inches for women. But I actually prefer waist to height ratio, which I'll cover in the S section, because it adjusts for body size in a way that the raw waist circumference doesn't. But for now, know your number. Most people don't, and that's the first problem. So stop asking how much do I weigh and start asking where's my fat and what is it doing? The waist is your first signal. Use it. A is for add real aerobic work. And I want to be precise about what real means here, because this is where a lot of people overestimate what they're actually doing. Being busy is not cardio. Light movement here and there is also not cardio. A 2024 meta-analysis in JAMA Network Open looked at 116 randomized trials, covering nearly 7,000 adults, and the findings was clear. As aerobic exercise increased, waist circumference and body fat came down. And the threshold that produced meaningful, clinical significant reductions in waist circumference, 150 minutes per week at moderate intensity or higher. That is your target, not a vague suggestion, a data-backed minimum. But moderate intensity is another term people fudge. So let's be specific. Moderate intensity means you're breathing harder than normal. You can still hold a conversation, but you couldn't sing. Your heart rate is typically in the range of 50 to 70% of your maximum. And a rough way to estimate your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So if you're 40, your target zone for moderate work is roughly 90 to 126 beats per minute. But if you want to skip the math entirely, just use the talk test. If you can speak in full sentences but wouldn't want to, you're in the right zone. If you can sing, go harder. But if you can't get a sentence out, ease off slightly. This includes exercises like brisk walking, jogging, cycling, rowing, and incline treadmill. It doesn't matter which one. What matters is that it's intentional, consistent, and actually clears the bar. The hard truth on this one is that most people aren't close to 150 minutes. They think they are because they count everything. Count only the stuff that actually makes you breathe hard, then see where you land. I stands for improved diet quality. Not go on a diet, not eat perfectly, but improve quality. A 2025 JAMA Network Open study followed over 7,000 adults and looked at what actually reduced visceral fat over time. The pattern was consistent. Improvements in both physical activity and diet quality together produced better outcomes than either one alone. Not diet or exercise, but diet and exercise. Now, I know that's not what people want to hear because it kills the either or argument people love. Can I outtrain a bad diet? No, you can't. Do I need to fix my food if I work out hard? Yes, you do. So, what does improving diet quality actually mean in practice, though? It's not a food list, it's not cutting out entire food groups. So, here's three principles that the research consistently supports. First, eat more minimally processed food. Whole food takes more energy to digest, keeps you full longer, and doesn't trigger the same overconsumption patterns that ultra processed food is specifically engineered to trigger. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to shift the ratio. Second, get enough protein. Higher protein intake is consistently associated with better body composition outcomes. It supports muscle retention while losing fat, and it's the most satiating macronutrient. Most people in a typical Western diet are undereating protein relative to what the evidence actually supports. And third, eat less of the stuff that's easy to overeat without noticing. These are ultra processed foods. Think packaged snacks, fast food, sweetened drinks. These are designed by teams of food scientists to override your satiety signals. You can undo an entire hard workout in 10 minutes without even feeling full. That's not a willpower problem, that's an engineering problem on their end. So reduce your exposure to it. You don't need a perfect diet, but you do need one that isn't actively working against the body you say that you want to have. S is for stop trusting BMI alone. And I want to be careful here because I'm not saying BMI is useless. It's a quick population level screening tool. That's fine. But if you're using it as your personal health verdict, you're using the wrong tool. Here's the evidence. A 2025 JAMA Network Open study used the All of Us cohort, one of the largest and most diverse health data sets in the US, and compared traditional BMI-based obesity classification against a framework that included actual body size and fat distribution measures. Under traditional BMI, 42.9% of the cohort had obesity. Under the updated definition, 68.6 had obesity. That's a 26-point gap, and the people filling that gap, the ones BMI was missing, still showed meaningful differences in health risk, including higher rates of organ dysfunction. The science is moving away from BMI only thinking. The entire field itself is saying that tool isn't enough. So what should you use instead, or alongside it? Two measurements that are increasingly supported by the research. Waist circumference you already know, but waist to height ratio is arguably the most useful because it scales with your body size. The calculation is simple. Divide your weight measurement by your height, both in the same unit. So if you're 70 inches tall and your waist is 35 inches, your ratio is 0.5. Most of the research suggests keeping that number below 0.5 as a reasonable target, meaning your waist should be less than half of your height. Some researchers use 0.53 as the upper boundary before risk starts rising meaningfully. That one number captures more about your metabolic risk than BMI does for most people. And you can calculate it right now with a tape measure and your height. So if your doctor clears you based on BMI and nothing else, that's not the full picture. Ask about waist circumference. Ask about waist to height ratio. Don't wait for the system to catch up. Know your waist. And finally, T. Toss the gimmicks. And I'll keep this one tight because the evidence makes it simple. A 2025 randomized controlled trial published in Nature Medicine took people already on a Mediterranean diet and tested whether adding an 8-hour time-restricted eating window would reduce visceral fat more than the diet alone. It didn't. Didn't matter if the window was earlier in the day, late in the day, or self-selected. No additional benefit for visceral fat reduction. Now, if a time window helps you eat less and stay consistent, then use it. That's a useful tool. But there is no magic in the window itself. You're not doing anything special to your metabolism. You're just controlling intake in a structured way. And that matters because the gimmick framing doesn't just waste money, it wastes time. Every month that someone spends chasing a hack is a month they're not doing the basics that actually move the needle. That's the real cost. The pattern I keep seeing is this. Someone tries intermittent fasting, they get marginal results. Tries a different protocol, they get marginal results. Then tries a supplement stack, and 3 years later, they're no better off than when they started. Meanwhile, the person who just walked 150 minutes a week, ate more real food, and actually measured their waist is measurably healthier. The gimmick industry survives on one thing, the hope that there's a shortcut around the basics. But there isn't. Every hack that actually works is just a fancy wrapper around eating better and moving more. So toss the gimmicks and keep the basics. So here's the waist rule. Watch the waist. The scale is hiding something your waist isn't. Measure it properly, know your number. Add real aerobic work, 150 minutes a week minimum, at intensity that actually counts. Use the talk test if you're unsure. Improve diet quality. More whole food, enough protein, less ultra processed. Not perfect, just not working against you. Stop trusting BMI alone. Calculate your waist to height ratio, keep it under 0.5, and toss the gimmicks. Structural tools are fine, magic claims aren't. The hack is almost as always discipline in a fancier outfit. The new science on visceral fat is saying something uncomfortable. A lot of people who think they're fine really aren't. Not because they're obese, but because they're measuring the wrong things and calling it reassurance. So don't ask how much do I weigh. Ask what kind of tissue am I carrying, where is it stored, and what are my habits actually building towards. If you want to live longer and feel better doing it, then follow for more.